fighting video games have received a lot of love from my channel, and I'm sure you all know at this point that they can take many forms. Maybe you're contemplating on what cantrip to use during a tense turn in Baldur's Gate 3, CRPG, or computer RPG, even though this game is also on consoles. Maybe you're slashing through hordes of undead in Diablo 2, action RPG. Maybe you're hacking down your 50th goblin in Dragon's Dogma 2, action RPG. But not like the Diablo 2 action RPG. Diablo 2 is like its own separate action RPG. Maybe you like the more story-driven adventures with a party like in Chrono Trigger, JRPG. How about an RPG with a lot of players? MMORPG. Needless to say, this genre is very far-reaching, but there's one specific flavor of RPG that I have been infatuated with for a long time, and that is a flavor of RPGs best associated with the Elder Scrolls series. Now, if you're at all familiar with my channel, you've heard this story many times before. There's not many games like Skyrim or Oblivion. We need more immersive sim first-person RPGs. Here's a handful of indie games inspired by the Elder Scrolls. Let's put a name to this so we can get more games like this in the future. So on and so forth. But we all know that there is no such thing as originality. Every piece of media you consume has been influenced by some other piece of media in one form or another, and the same can be said for the Elder Scrolls series. What I didn't know is that the piece of media that has inspired the Elder Scrolls has also damn near inspired gaming as we know it today. The Elder Scrolls Arena, Vampire, The Masquerade Bloodline, Deus Ex, Gears of War, BioShock, and even Half-Life 2 were all inspired by this one RPG from 1992. This is Ultima Underworld, the Stygian Abyss. Ultima is a series of RPG computer games originally created by Richard Garriott. And real quick, we gotta talk about this dude's backstory, because not only did he debatably release the first ever RPG for computers, he's also a second generation NASA astronaut and filmed the first and only short film that was filmed entirely in space.
Yeah.
Stop telling me I'm upside down.
You're upside down.
You're upside down.
Hey guys, I check in oxygen. It's using more for crew.
Todd Howard may have went from a member of the chess club to the executive producer of Bethesda, but did Todd Howard go to fucking space? The original Ultima series was developed for the Apple II computer by Blue Sky Productions, later renamed to Looking Glass Studios, which you may be more familiar with if you played the Thief games. The Ultima games were then ported to the subsequent computers of the 80s like the Commodore 64 and various other pieces of hardware that I'm honestly scared to read off because I might just summon a vengeful AI tech demon just reading these fucking names. No wonder these died out. The first game is pretty bog standard by today's RPG standards. An evil, orb-gazing incel wizard wreaks havoc on the land, and you have to stop him. Remind you of someone? The mainline series of Ultima games have experimented with different design choices throughout its 9 mainline titles, and they would later go on to release Ultima Online, and while it wasn't the first of its kind, it revolutionized the MMO subgenre and molded it into what it is today, especially considering Richard Garriott literally coined the term MMORPG. So this series has influenced even more pieces of media than I originally thought. However, Ultima Online isn't the focus of today's video. We're going to be taking a look at Ultima Underworld, an offshoot of the Ultima universe released in 1992. I've always wanted to check this game out considering it inspired my favorite RPG franchise of all time, but I was a little intimidated at first. I thought about how grueling dungeon crawling can be in Daggerfall, the woes of setting up DOSBox config files, rebinding keys, and all of that jazz, but I was stunned at just how well this game holds up despite being released almost 30 years ago. Let's take a look.
I was warned of thy coming. Last fortnight, an apparition of an old, haggard man appeared in my dreams.
First things first, this game did have a Unity port that was in the works, but it was eventually abandoned and swapped over to the Godot engine. The project is still up and running, but like most projects of its ilk, there are a ton of bugs and save-breaking shenanigans that can happen, so I opted out of using that. I am using the GOG version of the game with a fan-made patch called Ultima Underworld Portable, which mostly just comes with some tweaks to DOSBox to make the game play better on modern hardware, especially for me since I use an ultra-wide monitor, and most default DOSBox settings won't work for me. The patch does include some optional mods like a Portuguese translation and a mod that implements true mouse-look camera controls, but I opted out of using either of these because I wanted as close to the original experience as possible, and I'm not Portuguese or Brazilian. Firing the game up shows the title screen, firing up. Then an introductory cutscene explains the backstory. You play as the Avatar. No, not that Avatar, and not that Avatar, but the blank slate that's meant to be a representation of the player. And yes, the term Avatar was also coined by Richard Garriott. So basically, these two wizard brothers screw around and spawn a demon. One brother convinces the other brother to lure the demon into a room that's blessed by God, but the demon strikes a deal with one of the brothers, promising him power if he betrays the other brother. He accepts, but the betrayal of his brother goes kaput, killing the brother while also sealing the demon into that room. So he basically sits there and says, well shit, I can't get in there now that I made a deal with the demon, so I'm gonna have to sacrifice someone to get in there. So he goes for some rich baron's daughter and kidnaps her, dragging her down into the abyss to use as a human VIP card. After you witness the baron's daughter being kidnapped, you are then framed for the kidnapping of the daughter and thrown into the abyss as a prisoner to bring her back. Long story short, you're rescuing a damsel in distress because some wizard dude thought it would be a good idea to make a deal with a literal fucking demon. You're then brought to the character creation, where you choose from a preset number of classes, choose some skills to get some bonus starting skill points for, choose your face and difficulty settings, and you're off into the abyss. Now I know what you're thinking, man, this is a really busy and cluttered UI, but it's surprisingly intuitive while also injecting a bit of charm into the game as well. Most, if not all, the information you need for the game is displayed on the UI, and most interaction within the game world will be with just the left click and right click. You obviously have your health and mana meters, you have a paper doll representing your character's armor and weapon setup that you can freely drop equipment onto, you have a compass at the bottom of the view window which you can click to tell you how hungry or tired you are, you have a power button on the left that will change colors depending on how charged your attack is, there's a gargoyle at the top of the screen that changes eye color depending on your opponent's health, and there are also these two little serpent dudes that periodically chuckle whenever you kill an enemy. You also have a long list of actions on the left side of the screen that you can select to interact with the world in various ways. You can talk to things, look at things, use things like pull chains or levers to open doors, hit things with a sword, and pick up and throw things in the abyss. And the items actually have physics, which was pretty jaw-dropping back in the day. Having to switch through different actions did get annoying after some time, but if you deselect an action, you will then be in what's called default mode, which pretty much blends most of the actions together, and this became much more comfortable after I got used to it. Right-clicking will look at something, right-clicking and dragging will pick it up, and holding right-click and dragging up will open doors, use specific items, and chat with NPCs. The game can also be navigated entirely with a mouse, as left-clicking various spots in the view window will let you walk, run, turn, or strafe in whatever direction you choose. Now on that note, let's stop for a second and talk about the controls a bit more. I've complained about games like Arena and Battlespire having incredibly awkward controls. Arrow keys for movement, function keys for inventory and character sheet, just keybinds spread all throughout the keyboard to the point where walking around feels like you're playing fucking Twister with your fingers. But when I first picked up Ultima Underworld, I was absolutely gobsmacked to see that the controls were way ahead of their time. Get this, W runs forward, A and D turn left or right, S walks forward, X walks backward, and Z and C strafe left or right. It's literally a WASD control scheme just shifted down one key on the keyboard. Ultima Underworld got this shit right, and it's insane to think about how many games it went on to inspire, yet this type of control scheme wouldn't be used in an Elder Scrolls game until Morrowind in 2002. Ultima Underworld was a whole decade ahead of the competition. The game even features the ability to look up or down, which was another noteworthy feature that set aside Underworld from other games at the time. 1 looks down, 3 looks up, and 2 resets your view back to a neutral vertical position. Again, everything is on one side of the keyboard, nestled right next to the movement keys. Nice and comfortable, and for the most part, I don't have to take my hand off the movement keys to access another menu or do some other mundane action. You can combine the movement keys with the left mouse button to move the camera while you move around, and it's basically a precursor to the free mouse look camera that would become dominant in later years. Alright, so now that we're done geeking out about the controls, we can actually get to the game itself. So what is Ultima Underworld? Well, from the words of Richard Garriott himself, it is a dungeon simulator. It's not quite like the turn-based, grid/tile-oriented RPGs of the time. This puts the player in a more immersive first-person perspective and allows for deeper interaction within the game world. For one, the game world has physics, which not only just looks cool when you're dropping stuff out of your inventory, but also affects ranged combat as you now have to adjust for bullet drop, or pebble drop. in this instance. The whole game takes place in a dungeon, with you starting at the first level of the Abyss, and your main goal is to get through all 8 levels in order to rescue the Baron's daughter. But there are also a ton of items you need to pick up, and a lot of people and creatures you need to talk to along the way. Of course, nothing is ever spelled out for you because there are no quest markers or really anything to guide you towards a particular objective. Quests and objectives are only discovered through conversing with NPCs, who mention important items to pick up with varying amounts of specificity. It's up to you to read between the lines and explore a bit to maneuver your way through the Abyss. Oftentimes you'll find secret doors and other hidden objects you can easily skip if you just rush through. This game can be pretty unforgiving, with some rooms literally soft-locking you if you don't have some form of levitation like a spell or a potion. In the Abyss, you'll find a ton of useful items to carry with you, with the most important items given to you right at the start. Right next to you is a bag that you can drag into your inventory to use as a container. In the bag you'll have a dagger, some food to sustain your hunger for a little bit, and most importantly, a map. This is the single most useful item in the game, as getting lost is literally as easy as turning a corner. You can also write on your map, letting you jot down important landmarks, NPC locations, and items you may want to come back to later, as you can freely enter and exit each level whenever you please. Some quests even require you to backtrack to previous levels to chat with certain NPCs a second time. The dungeon is dark, and you will most definitely need some form of a light source to make your way through, whether that be with candles, torches, lamps, or even unique spells that create light or give you night vision. All of these give varying levels of light. Another important item is the bedroll, which you can also get close to the starting area. This will let you sleep, which will not only restore your health and mana, but can also burn out your light source if you don't put it out prior to sleeping. If you don't sleep, your character will eventually tire out, making weaker attacks with longer recovery times and failing to cast many spells. So keep track of your personal well-being by clicking on the compass every now and then. You may also be visited by the ghost of Garamond, the brother of the now insane wizard who made the deal with the demon. It will guide you through the Abyss and give you general insight on the many factions and politics going on underground. Now these are just the more useful items you'll be carrying with you, because the immersion of the game is also aided by several useless junk items laid throughout the dungeon as set dressing. You know how many people just hoard tons of items in the Elder Scrolls games just because the game allows you to throw a tankard and some random plate into your inventory? You can thank Ultima Underworld for that. While you're exploring the Abyss, you are most likely going to encounter hostile creatures, and the combat adds another layer of immersion to the simulation. Combat is done in real time and utilizes a direction-based fighting system. Axes will perform better when doing a vertical chop, daggers and spears are best used when thrusting, and swords are generally best used for slashing. Defense is done by not actively blocking, but rather mitigating blows with your armor, dodging attacks via your agility skill, or literally stepping away from your opponent before they attack so you're out of their attack range. This does lead to a lot of combat where you step in, take a swing, and then step back, but that makes sense. Real sword fighting does the exact same thing, so melee combat felt very natural. Aside from melee, you also have ranged weapons like bows, crossbows, and slings that must be used at a specific range in order to actually shoot. If the enemy gets too close, you either need to back away and create room or switch to a close range weapon. This is the same for offensive spells like Magic Arrow or Flame Bolt, but magic also works a bit differently in this game compared to other RPGs. So at the beginning of the game, you can find what's called a rune bag. This will hold all of the rune stones that you can find throughout the game world. These stones are then prepared on what's called the rune shelf. If you assemble the stones in the correct order, you can then click the rune shelf to cast a spell. This allows you to preset particular utility spells like being able to create food or create a bright light that follows you around. Spell combinations are often written on scrolls that you can find throughout the dungeon, so I recommend keeping a small pouch with you to organize your stuff. Many of these spells are also listed in the manual, which you would honestly be fucked if you didn't have this back in the day without internet. Spells are also categorized through different circles, with the higher circles requiring higher casting and magic experience. So with that, how do you level up? Well, like everything else in this game, even leveling up is cryptic and confusing. As you play the game, you'll be gaining experience, whether that be from slaying monsters, discovering new locations, solving puzzles, or completing quests. Once you reach the experience threshold, you are then allowed to level up. Now, most RPGs nowadays have streamlined the entire level up process to be just a simple click of a few buttons, and now you're stronger with whatever stat or skill you want to be stronger with. But that was absolutely not the case with Ultima Underworld. You first need to find a shrine, which takes the form of an Ankh. These shrines are not detailed on the map, so if you find them, you better write those bitches down because you are going to be visiting these a lot. Interacting with a shrine will then let you level up, but you do so by typing in a specific mantra. That mantra will pertain to a certain skill or attribute that you want to level up. The first shrine gives you 3 mantras you can use that will give minor improvements to some skills split across attack, magic, and practical skills like speech, lockpicking, or appraising. You can instead chant a more specific mantra to gain more stat points toward one specific skill, but you need to know the mantra first. Mantras can be discovered by talking with NPCs, found scribbled across doorways and corners of rooms, or found in the form of a letter that you can find in the many containers spread throughout the abyss. The AI behaves in very realistic ways. Some enemies would attempt to flank me from multiple angles, and when their health would get low, they would try to run away. Some enemies I didn't even need to fight at all, because the game has multiple factions that you can converse with and even join to get different benefits. Looking at a particular creature will tell you its alignment with you, whether they're friendly, mellow, upset, or outright hostile to you. Each level pertains to a specific faction. The first level consists of a small human settlement and 2 warring goblin tribes. The second level is the mountain men area, or dwarves, which they do not like being called. They have a problem with a horrific monster that took over the north side of their minds. It's pretty tough, but if you kill it, the mountain men leader will reward you with a special gem cutter you'll need later. The third level is the lizard men territory. Most of them aren't hostile to you at first, but they speak a unique language that you don't understand. I found this imprisoned mage who can translate, but the catch is he's a mute, so he can only make vague gestures explaining words you want translated. And yes, you also have to manually type out the words you want translated, so there's a lot of back and forth between you, the lizardman, and the mage. You'll come to find out that the mage was imprisoned for stealing food, and you can convince the lizardman to release him, rewarding you with a special rune which will let you cast more advanced spells. Level 4 is the domain of the Knights of the Order of Crux and Sada and the Trolls. This is where you start to dig into the main story, get some crucial lore, and find some powerful items that you'll need to complete the game. Most notably, 8 enchanted talismans left behind by Sir Cabarrus. Once you collect all the talismans and progress through the rest of the levels, you rescue the Baron's daughter, bury the bones of Garamon, and banish the demon that was summoned by Garamon's brother. And that's Ultima Underworld. I'm not gonna lie, this game is definitely not for the faint of heart, especially in 2025. It doesn't play like a traditional RPG, but that's what makes it unique. All of the realistic and immersive choices you can make in the sandbox environment really stood out back then, and it still stands out today. This was revolutionary at the time, and inspired some of the most popular games you can think of. This game had a sequel released just a year after the original, and I was surprised to find out that the most recent Ultima game was released as recent as 2018 with Underworld Ascendant. But this story unfortunately does not end with a happy ending. The game underwent financial struggles and development hell, releasing in an incredibly unpolished and broken state, which slapped the game with tons of criticism that absolutely neutered its potential. Maybe I'll try that game out one day to see for myself, but for now, I think I need to rest. Oh, fuck.